compound interest with repeated multiplication. Previously, we used a table to work out our compound interest, and we looked at the problem where $100 is invested for 4 years at 10% per annum compound interest, compounding annually. Compounding annually says they calculate the interest and add it on once per year. So in year 1, the interest earned was 10% of $100. And to calculate 10% of an amount, that would be 10 divided by 100 times the amount. 10 divided by 100 means I'm multiplying by 0.1. And if I double check that, 100 times 0.1 gives me $10 of interest, and I add that on, and I've got $110 sitting in the bank account. Now, what I could have done instead, and you might remember this from year 8, increasing or decreasing by a percentage, is since I knew I wanted to add on 10%, I could have found 110% of $100, which would be 110 divided by 100. And if I double check, that's multiplying by 1.1. So what I'm saying is you could find 10% and add it on, or you could find 110% by multiplying your amount of 100 by 1.1. And I get $110. So what that's saying is when I want to find the total at the end, the interest earned is 10% of $110 now, but instead I could find 110% of $110. We're getting a lot of very complicated things. This can be done by doing times 1.1. 1.1 times $110 means I've got $121 in the bank right now. I can double check that if I want. 10% of $110 is going to be $11 of interest. Adding 11 on to this, I've got 121. So what I really did there was I just multiplied by 1.1 for every year of my calculation. So your method, principal times the multiplication factor and repeat for the number of years. So this would be the principal of $100 times 1.1 for the first year, times 1.1 for the second year, times 1.1 for the third year, times 1.1 for the fourth year. Now if I multiply 1.1 times 1.1 times 1.1 times 1.1, I could rewrite that as times 1.1 to the power of 4. There is a formula that does this. The amount is the principal times 1 plus the rate on 100 to the power of n. But we learn that next year. You don't need to know it. All you need to know is you can get your annual compound interest by doing the principal, finding the multiplication factor, whatever the percentage is, plus the 100%, and multiplying it for the number of years.